Good afternoon. Excited for this panel and welcoming Sterling Smith, Dom Shamblee, Alana Mediavilla, and Onyeka Akumah to talk about revolutionizing the future, bold minds, big ideas, limitless impact. So we'll read through a quick background on everyone here. Sterling Smith is the founder of RightMatch AI, a cutting-edge multi-sensory AI-powered interview platform aimed at saving time and reducing bias in the hiring process. Um, Sterling and I met at his previous role as an investor at Atento Capital, and now he's a VC Now founder focusing on building the future of work, leveraging AI and technology. So super excited to welcoming you here today. Dom was here last night in Columbus, Ohio at our kickoff party. Dom has had the fortunate opportunity to work on tech innovation across a variety of industries, including automotive, health, pharma, and real estate, as well as film and television, consumer packaged goods, and more. Super excited to hear what he's building with Garden IQ. The next speaker is Alana Mediavilla. Alana and I met in Miami, Florida. She is an award-winning filmmaker and the founder of Campo Libre, an independent film house redefining how films are made and shared. Today, she's pioneering innovative distribution strategies and launching a producer fund to accelerate creative experimentation. Super excited to hear about what you're doing, as well as her new documentary, Dirty Coin, that she launched. And last but not least, Onyeka is a serial entrepreneur who's been recognized as a distinguished young CEO who has built high impact ventures across diverse sectors in 5 different countries. He's currently the founder and CEO of Treepz, Africa's leading corporate mobility startup, with close to 6 million customers served across 5 countries, including Nigeria, Kenya, Ghana, Uganda, as with a headquarters in Canada. So super excited to having everyone on. I appreciate all your time. I know you're all super busy. Alana, would love to get started off with you, and to if you could share a little bit more about your year. Obviously, for those who aren't familiar, Alana just published a documentary called Dirty Coin, and really traveled the whole world. So Alana would kind of just love to hear a little bit about your documentary. I know now there's different distribution strategies, so maybe we could just start there. That'd be awesome.
Everything about this has been unusual from the beginning, but it's just how it needed to be. I mean, I launched myself into this in 2021. I am an owner of a video production company that was based in Silicon Valley. And I did a lot of work for a lot of tech companies, Volvo, PayPal, Amazon. And I ended up working at Google. I was a video producer there, and I moonlit with my service company, with my agency while I was there. So I feel like I really learned how to tell a story about tech in the best city to learn how to tell a story about tech, because we were measuring views. It's very performance driven. Our work was very performance driven. Sometimes to a fault, because it didn't allow for a lot of creative leeway because we needed to stick to what worked. But in a way, I'm very happy that I got to find out what worked. And when I broke the rules with Dirty Coin, I knew when I was breaking the rules. And so I decided I was going to quit Dirty Coin, Google Cloud specifically, to only do my agency work. I was like, I need to only do this. I was already traveling a lot. It was tough to battle both jobs. And my company is also a vendor for Google, and I couldn't do both at the same time. So I just kind of spread my wings and left the golden handcuffs, and it decided to put an agency together. And I told my mom that my goal for that agency was for it to reach $5 million. And she's like, and then what? And I was like, well, then I'll make a movie, because that's really what I want to do. And she was like, well, then can't you just make a movie now? And I'm like, well, right. Okay. So I'm no longer going to pursue these projects that were, you know, six-figure video projects, hundreds of videos. We were getting, you know, in the orders of hundreds of videos for a whole year. So it was lucrative, but also very expensive to run. And in a way, being an independent filmmaker, the overhead is much lower as well. So I decided to make a movie, and I did some soul searching. And as a person that had been, I'm Cuban, I'm half Cuban, half Puerto Rican, had been very familiar with Bitcoin and Bitcoin kind of like crossing borders in that way, I felt that this was a really cool and exciting conversation that people were missing the point of. And so because of my background in data centers, I knew what mining looked like and what Bitcoin mining looks like. But obviously a parallel industry. So yeah, so after some soul searching, I was like, I'm not going to grow a big agency. I'm just going to make a movie, and I'm going to run an independent film house that produces my movies and other filmmakers' movies. And I started with Dirty Coin. I had to make mine first, figure it out. And after 3 years filming it in 4 different continents, we've put it together, and it has been the most popular Bitcoin documentary. Still not by numbers, but you know, people in the space have told me personally that it is their favorite documentary about Bitcoin. And I've been congratulated many times. It's won Best Movie, and it has escaped the bubble. So we've also done a very successful film festival run. And so it's tough to boil that down, but I don't want to take the stage for too long. But it's been a very
Yeah.
incredible year.
Yeah. Yeah, and now I dropped the link. Everyone is able to, you could rent or watch a rental right from Kinema
Yeah.
directly online now. So I actually
And that
flew
goes directly
to
to me and Kinema, very peer to peer.
love it, which is the first time I've seen anything like this. So I think I love that you're figuring this out.
Apple takes
Sterling,
30%, Amazon takes a cut as well. So these are things that as an independent filmmaker, you do have to consider, because I pay for the traffic and people go to the website that I send them to. So anyway,
wow.
that's a fun conversation.
Yeah, we'll definitely get back there. Sterling, I want to touch base with you. You know, you've gone from VC to a founder. It's been interesting year about VC. Just for perspective, Sterling is in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And they say in terms of black founders, you know, black founders get in America under 2% of VC funding. And I am pretty sure the statistic is 1% comes from Tulsa. So I think it's So I think Tulsa was a unique space with diversity in tech. But what has the transition been like? You know, going from the VC side to a founder this year.
Yeah, and thank you for calling it out. And by the way, Manny, hats off for putting all this together. I'd love to see your Rolodex. I mean, you got some very interesting people on this panel, much less the entire run of show. So congratulations, hats off. We need more Mannys doing these things. This is amazing.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, so just want to like asterisk there. I spent a lot of time in Tulsa. I'm actually in Bentonville, Arkansas, but that's right there. It's like an hour and a half away, but we're Tulsa, Bentonville, Arkansas. Both are in the heartland, but the fund that I worked for, which is Atento Capital, is based in Tulsa. And I think Manny nailed it. One interesting stat that I recently read is around 360, only 360 Black men specifically have raised $1 million, period, ever, from venture
Yeah, it's
investors,
tough.
which is insane. 360 $1 million in total have, from initial seed investment standpoint. And a lot of that is coming out of Tulsa. The George Kaiser Family Foundation and the fund that I was the managing director at is passionate about investing in underserved, underinvested in founders, to include women and the LGBTQ community. And generally speaking, founders have great ideas. And so the transition for me, I began. I don't know if you ever been to Afrotech or South by Southwest, and you see a Black founder, or I'm sorry, a Black executive at one of the big FANG companies. Most of the times, if they admit it, they'll say, "Hey, look, yes, I'm working in a very high level position at Google or at Netflix or Amazon or whatever, but I also have a side hustle I'm working on at the same time." And that's kind of how I entered Atento. I never stopped building. Before I joined the venture investment world, I just exited a startup that I was an early state and one of the top first three engineers at. And then before that, I was building startups. and building software for bigger companies. And so I never stopped building and actually brought an
Yeah.
idea into the fund. And so you asked me what the transition's been like, and it's been quite pleasant. It kind of felt like, going back into a warm bed in a cold, on a cold morning, jumping back
Yeah.
into the founder role full time. It was amazing. And so that answers that question.
That's awesome. And Onyeka, we'll come to you. You've, just doing business in Africa is a super hot topic. I feel like right now I have one of my best friends is in Kenya buying property right now as we speak.
Okay.
So I would love to just learn, just in terms of building trips to 6 million rides, how, I guess how difficult and in terms was that? And then also where do you see the future? Is it continuing to expand around Africa, and to other continents? And maybe if you could just let people know what Treepz is as well, who aren't familiar.
Okay, thanks, Marnie. So first is Treepz is a corporate mobility startup. What we do is we help employees of organizations and their employers commute to work and back on a daily basis, averaging about 10,000 people doing that every single day. And within the short while we've been working, we've been able to take our technology into multiple markets. In the expansion strategy we had, we acquired startups from one place to the other. Acquired in Ghana, we acquired in Kenya, we acquired in Uganda to expand into those markets. The support we've had has been investors from the US, from Canada specifically, investing in our startup, and we've been able to raise about $5 million to fuel the growth of our business into those markets. I think the good part about it is that the logistics system and the transportation system is broken in many of these African countries. And what we've seen in Treepz is we've provided safer, convenient, predictable transportation services. So we can take for granted what you'll have maybe in Toronto with the bus system or the New York train system. What in Africa, you don't have many of those services available to people. So essentially, we created a technology platform to provide that kind of service for people. And close to 6 million people have said, yes, this is good for them. And what we've seen now is the opportunity to take that same technology into other markets outside of Africa. So we have our eyes set on North America, and we're currently having conversations about replicating the model in Canada, in some cities in Canada, and do the same also in the Middle East, with some cities like Dubai. So that essentially is Treepz. For my background, I've been involved in the tech space for a bit. My background is in software engineering. I've worked for a couple of corporates like Deloitte, British Council, and some banks. I've worked also for some of the early startups that have come out of Africa, including the first unicorn that was out of Africa in 2014, where I was employee number one there. And within that period, I've built 4 startups, exited 2, and currently focused on what I'm building with Treepz. So what I see the future for this is as I continue to create opportunities in Africa and also pay attention to North America and how solutions we create in Africa can solve problems also in North America, I see a huge opportunity for anyone looking to invest to do so in startups that are coming out of Africa at a lower base point for you to make decent returns in these businesses that have a huge market size to serve and also technology that is evolving and people are accepting on a daily basis across the different cities you'll find in Africa, where your return on investment can be such tremendous return for you when you look at the opportunity in the markets. I think the future is where I see that happening. And also, some of these technologies then are exported out of Africa to solve problems you will find in other parts of the world. That essentially is why we're building Treepz. That essentially is why many entrepreneurs are excited about the continent and why people like me also are reinvesting in founders that we find and mentoring and creating community for them to continue to thrive on the continent.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And so if anyone here wants to get a hold of Onyeka, definitely feel free to reach out, drop any questions. Dom, coming to you, would love to hear, with your experience working with several brands and storytelling, I guess what trends are you seeing that you've noticed this year, and what are you seeing looking into next year, that companies could really take advantage of?
Yeah, so thanks for calling on me. Just to kind of give a little bit of my background. So I have basically my background is from creative agency world. I was a creative director for about 12 years at Rockfish, VML, VML, Y&R. And then about 5 years ago, my VP and I left and we started our own agency. So we've been, providing marketing services, technology, and data for about the last 5 years. And then obviously during that process, we started Garden IQ, which is our MarTech platform. But obviously on the craft and create side with the agencies, when it comes to brand storytelling, what we're seeing, obviously, you've got many channels that you can kind of tell those stories through. But we're seeing a lot of user generated content starting to really kind of move the needle a lot more. So I think we're looking to see, obviously there's a whole formula around brand storytelling and doing that right, which I think we'll get into a little bit in a little bit. So, but for 2025, looking forward, obviously, like I said, user generated content, and hopefully we'll see more AR and VR type experiences. That's something that Craft and Create is definitely trying to push on the brand side, is creating some novel, unique experiences that really resonate with consumers or their customer base. So we, hopefully we'll see a lot of that kind of stuff coming forward in 2025 across, a lot of the social channels. I think back probably 8 years ago, maybe almost, there was Snapchat and TikTok and those guys that were, maybe TikTok wasn't quite there yet, but Snapchat for sure. I remember working on with some brands and trying to bring some AR experiences into those. I think we actually worked with Office Depot at one point for like a back to school campaign that, tried to bring in an AR experience, obviously geared toward kind of a younger audience. But I think at that point, it was just a little too new, right? It wasn't, you couldn't kind of fully bake out that experience enough to tell a story, right? And again, I think you've got some questions from me that we'll get into, kind of the nuts and bolts of that storytelling. But, at the time, those formats just weren't robust enough really to, kind of tell the entire story, right? The beginning, the middle, the end. And for somebody to come away with, something that resonated and called them to action essentially. So, hopefully now, obviously, there's plenty of improvements that have been made across those formats, and most of these channels have made really good updates to accommodate that. So hopefully we'll see more brands circle back to that format in the coming year or two, so that we can do some really innovative stuff on that side.
Awesome. Yeah, no, so I really wanted to put you four together. I think it's an interesting mix of folks. So Alana, with her documentary, and I'm going to let you correct this, but I know there's a portion of the documentary that was filmed in Africa, and really capturing a village using Bitcoin mining, not only to generate income, but also to turn on power in their neighborhood. So I would love to, and I think that's a unique story in this panel. So Alana, would love for you to kind of tell that story, and just who you're working with in that village. And I think there could be some synergy there.
Absolutely. The dryer is almost done, but it's very loud, so I apologize. It's like right there. So this was one of the stories that I felt wasn't really being discussed, because Bitcoin, they are data centers, but they're much more rugged ones. They can survive tougher conditions than your regular data center. They also don't require the same connectivity as your regular data center. So you can really drop them into the middle of nowhere. And with Starlink, they can participate in the Bitcoin network. And so I met the founders of Gridless, which is the Bitcoin mining company that I interviewed. And everything that they have done, they have open sourced, because they have a couple of sites. They started in Kenya. They're now in Malawi. We recorded in Malawi. And basically, there's these hydro dams that are producing more electricity than is being consumed. So you can't store that electricity, and it just goes to waste every day. And so by the Bitcoin miner going there and monetizing all of that waste it's like Lego pieces, because each one machine consumes in 1 month the same amount of electricity as 250 houses. It's a lot of electricity. So you can drop like 4 or 5 of these, and it consumes way more than the village does, but they're currently wasting that. And their thought is, well, once the capacity, and they can turn down instantly. So when the village needs that electricity, the machines can turn off. And that's part of the deal that they've made as well. And their idea is to just continue to monetize the physical infrastructure, because it costs money to build a grid. You know, you have electricity lines, you need to hire people, you need to train them. You know, there's, especially when you're coming out of a village that has never had the electricity. It's not like Puerto Rico, we're fixing it. There's no pre-existing industry. And so, you know, it's such an interesting story, and it continues unraveling. And it was wonderful to interview Gritless, but I also interviewed other miners that are doing that in Canada. There's a lot of wasted energy in Canada, Paraguay, El Salvador, Uruguay, many, many different places in Africa. And these mining machines are actually pretty easy to buy. So although the companies are the ones that bubble up to people finding out about, for every company, I suspect that there's like 100 home miners, people that got their hands in the second market of a free or an inexpensive mining machine, and they're mining Bitcoin at home, and they're not telling anybody about it. And that's their right.
Wow. Yeah.
A lot of these places, the electricity is free. Like in Argentina, I visited a woman that after the interview, I was like, I can't use anything of this interview. This is way too incriminating. I'm going to leave this out, but it was a great conversation. So there's also a lot of home miners that are taking advantage of like cheap electricity in their village, in their town. So this isn't just companies. Locally, people are doing this, which is great.
Interesting. It's again, Dirty Coin is out right now. Highly recommend everyone to go see it. Sterling, coming back to you in terms of RightMatch AI and what you're doing there, how do you see AI shaping the future of work, and what industries do you think will benefit the most?
Yeah, and one thing I didn't do previously is give you any background on RightMatch, so I'll just take a second to tell everyone what RightMatch is. So what RightMatch is solving for our customers is answering one question for them, and that is, how do you know that this candidate you may be interviewing in 2025 from anywhere in the world, how do you know that they can actually do the work? We live in a very global society, and people are hiring people, even from specifically the United States, in Central America and Africa and the Ukraine region, and people are hiring them everywhere. But number one, how do you know who they are, that they're real, and how do you know that they can actually do the work? And that's what RightMatch is really focusing on solving for our customers. And we do that in 2 ways. At the point of application, we validate validate their identity, and we provide a relevance score. So at the moment they apply, we provide them with a relevance score against the hundreds of other applicants and the job description they're applying for. And then we use artificial intelligence to create and send them and conduct interviews on behalf of the employers before a human ever engages with them. So if you can imagine, a user interface that would be traditional to video interviews that existed, the kind of the incumbents, but it's powered by AI, where we're tracking sentiment analysis, we're evaluating the answers, we're transcribing those, and we're scoring the answers against the topics they're interviewed on, the skills-based interviews. And so what does that mean for our customers? They're saving on average 75% of the time that it takes to hire someone. And so if you think about the way that I think, through that lens, what the future of recruiting looks like, it means it could mean 2 different things. It could mean a few different things. And from a sinister perspective, if the wrong company wins, it means that each employee has a credit score that basically eliminates them from ever being hired without pre-screened out via AI. But from a positive standpoint, it's adding transparency to the conversation and reducing bias. There's a ton of bias. There's bias at every stage in hiring right now. If you apply for a job, typically right now, decisions are made in the silo. So if you apply, there's usually one overworked person who has their own viewpoints in life, better or worse, that determine whether or not you get moved to the next stage. And they're looking at hundreds of applicants a day. We remove bias from that stage. Typically, when you go to the next stage, it's usually a hiring manager that's doing the same thing to some extent, but looking at more technical attributes that you might possess. We're injecting a collaborative element to that process, allowing for teams to collaborate at each of those stages with insights from AI. And so, from a high level,
Yeah.
we believe that the future of work is both, when leveraging this technology the right way, is powering less bias in the hiring process.
Awesome. Awesome. I guess from your perspective, do you see employers, continuing to grow their employee base? And this is because Reid Hoffman, I read a quote that the 9 to 5 would be eliminated by 2034. I think Reid Hoffman
Yeah.
said that. But so I just
Yeah.
like from your perspective, how do you take that?
Yeah. I mean, I'm an optimist. Here's what I'll say. I'll say that the answer is not creating agents that eliminate. Like, for example, we have a competitor that just raised $9 million to create agents to handle pre-screening from end to end. So, hey, I need to go hire a full stack developer to join my team. It will create a job post. It will go source people on all over the internet, and then it'll send technical questions without the candidate ever speaking to a human. That's not going to work. Candidates will reject that. They will recoil from that. I think if I asked everyone to raise their hand on this call, they'd say, I would not work for a company that took that approach. The approach that we take is a human-centered approach. We believe that, in fact, merit exists no matter what you look like, and experience exists no matter where you come from. And so let's focus on what we like to call the random access memory to evaluate candidates and help surface the best candidates. And to answer your question directly, are we eliminating jobs? No, we believe that we're 10xing your employees. So the recruiter who has, 5 jobs they've posted and each one has 300 applicants, they can now use technology to intelligently sort the order of those candidates to the most relevant and spend more time having conversations. So we think, when done right, for people who are building more and more solutions that leverage AI, the right answer, in this current day and age, at least today, in the next, I think, 5 years, is keeping the human at the center and then building out solutions that empower that human to 10x their output.
Awesome. Yeah. So probably should have made this an hour. Don't know what I was thinking.
All good.
But yeah, it's already 2:30. So I really appreciate you all. Wishing you all a happy holidays. Love to connect with all of you in the new year. And thank you again for your time.